Hey Nick, can you hear us?
Echoing.
I can. It's a little echoey though.
Yeah, well, my computer wasn't muted. Is
Oh,
it better?
now, yeah, now it's fine.
Fantastic, okay. Well, I just wanted to, since you're on and Kent's online, Kent just raised his hand, but then put it down. Um, I figured we'd test it. Judy's here so far, as you can see.
So we can start.
Quorum is 3 or 4?
3.
Three.
Yeah, different than council.
Yeah.
Let me never learn that again.
was-
One and done.
I mean, it shouldn't be an issue tonight, but, I mean, the housing authority recently didn't have a quorum. And that was, and like, no one told them in advance they weren't coming, so they just. Were fine, so,
Who's online?
Kent so far, and Nick.
Got a cold. It's good to see y'all though.
He will not be here.
Dylan, are they still looking for new people on the housing authority?
I think they filled everything for now. As far as board members.
That's me.
Yes, indeed, we've got Kent and Nick online, so.
Why is it so cold? Air conditioning.
Strong windows.
Is it?
I don't know.
Both of those things probably.
Hey, Nick and Kent, I'm just gonna mute the room until the meeting starts. I just wanted to test.
It's,
Sounds good.
I remember it being so cold in here.
Give us
Yeah, maybe they fixed it.
8 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's air conditioning on.
All right. We are unmuted, so
So should we have Judy sit up here?
she wants, she doesn't like to sit there.
It's
Well,
okay.
Is she part of the voting? So,
She's
I'll
part of the
come
voting
up,
for
yeah.
sure.
yeah, okay.
Um,
I think if you're part of the voting that's counting, you should be.
This is it for tonight?
Yeah.
And we've Kent online, so there's 4.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard, I know Katie was like, I can't make it.
Yeah.
But I did not officially hear from Uchi or Jefferson, so
Me neither.
Jefferson might come in, and Uchi might, they might just be waiting, we'll see.
Oh, my.
How about 10 on the table?
Somebody
Okay.
call must sit
You
there.
gotta, yeah,
Hey,
Stand up.
Dylan,
there you go.
That's
Perfect.
better.
if we have the feeling that folks are gonna come in like 5 minutes late, it would be my preference that we wait just a couple of minutes. The reason being is if they show up late and we've already started one of the CUP hearings, they're not going to be able to participate. So, I mean, if we have that sense, that's what I would recommend. But if you want to just get started, we can get started. We just have to make sure that if someone shows up late and we're in the middle of a hearing, they know that they're not participating and not voting.
Okay, we don't have a hearing. It's not on the agenda.
Well, these CUP requests.
Right, I guess once we started anyway, people wouldn't be able to vote because they missed testimony, so whether it's a hearing or not, doesn't officially. get a
Well,
hearing.
it's just how,
Cause you don't have a script.
I don't.
Yeah, 'cause-
Exactly.
My understanding too is that the hearing will happen at council.
That makes sense. We're just giving a recommendation to.
Yeah, I misspoke. Not a hearing, but it's still a quasi judicial application that we're
Nervous.
acting
I
on.
know you both were looking at each other like, did we
Thank you,
mess
Nick.
up
Just
something?
important that I was-
I know. I get.
I'm guessing they're not going to tour. So we should just get started.
Okay. All right, we'll call to order the meeting for Thursday, June 4th, 2026. Roll call.
Chuck Howard,
Here,
Kent Slaymaker,
Here,
Katie Maxwell, alternate Jefferson Litch, alternate Judy Murphy,
Here.
Vice Chair Ursula Cruza-Legg, Chair Cindy Olson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of the agenda as written. I have a motion.
I so move.
Second,
second it,
those in favor, yes.
yes?
Opposed? Motion carries. Now's the time for public comment. We have nobody here. Do we have anybody signed in?
No,
Okay, no public comment. Conflict of interest. Do we have anybody on commission with a conflict of interest? Okay, no conflict of interest. Approval of the minutes for May 7th, 2026. I'll need a motion.
Your turn.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the May 7th, 2026 meeting.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Should have asked for corrections. I didn't see any.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
This will be a 5-minute meeting.
No kidding. Gosh. Staff update.
sure, so a couple of updates that were in the packet. Comprehensive plan is not quite ready. I would say I'm 95% of the way there. I have everything in, but I was mentioning before the meeting started, there was just a couple of little housekeeping items like appendices that I need to put together. I'm guessing it will take another 2 work days, where I get busy during the day and I can focus for half a day or something like that. I can get it done by the middle of next week and have it out for everyone for review. So that will just mean that basically people don't get this upcoming weekend to look it over. And the plan will be to send it out to planning commission and also publish it on the website as a draft and then kind of advertise around town to say, please public, provide comments and feedback and all of those sorts of things. And then at our next meeting, we can kind of reconvene and talk about all of that. So this will be a pretty long document with all the sections and all that. So I figure 3 to 4 weeks to review all of it is probably good.
So at what point do you wanna, where we recommend it to approval to the council?
Depending on what comments I get between like next week and beginning of July, we might be ready to have it as an item for July. Otherwise, I think it would probably be August.
Okay.
And then council would look at it and hopefully not have any changes and then would adopt it at the end of August.
Okay. What is our July meeting?
It's tentatively currently scheduled for July 1st.
Oh, okay.
We'll, I don't know if it'll be, I mean, I guess this would be the item on it.
Cause we're going back
Back to Wednesdays.
to Wednesdays.
Yeah, I can go with that. So we're back to Wednesdays from here on out.
Okay.
As we had discussed. And then a couple of other just quick updates, exterior lighting. We're still working on some of that before we can bring it to you to look at again. The other project that we've been looking at is adopting updated noise regulations. The state has regulations and we haven't formally adopted them, and it makes it sort of complicated for PD for enforcement. And there's more nuance to it than that, but basically we're doing some research into like updating the city's codes related to those. And that's it for staff updates, unless anyone has questions on it.
Anybody have questions for Dylan? No, I think I asked mine. Kent, any questions?
Nope, makes sense.
Okay, we'll
Thanks,
go on to new business, and it's request for private parking lots. 2 items.
And the applicant is on the call on Zoom, so if you have questions for him, Ken Nelson, or comments or want testimony, he is online. There's 2 conditional use permits, and the reason for that is because it's separate lots, so functionally they function as 2 lots. So this first one is for conditional use permit to allow for a parking lot to function as a allowed use on the subject site. Currently, parking is an accessory use, not a primary use. So if you're establishing parking as the use for the site, that has to go through this conditional use permit process. The way that we anticipated it functioning would be like it were a city lot, but the key thing to note is that it's not part of the city system. If approved, theoretically, I guess you could lease agreement with the city or something like that, but this would be to allow parking lot use. If it's a private lot, all the management, monitoring, maintenance, enforcement would be the responsibility of that private operator. Current uses of the site, it's zone C2, East End Overlay District. Current use of 2833 Colorado Boulevard is vacant. Current 2821 does have a tow company storage yard on the site. The portion of 2821 that's being used is separate from that use, but it's officially part of that lot. So this use would bridge both lots. So I sent this out for referral to all of our normal referral agencies. We didn't receive any negative comments about the application from Public Works, JVA, from Fire Authority, or from the police department. So there's no issues from them. Based on my review of the application, I believe that in general, criteria 1 is met. The parking spaces shown on the plan meet the minimum parking space widths that are required for the code. Access for this particular lot would be via Colorado Boulevard. which currently has a turning lane that would allow vehicles to not be in traffic, I suppose, similar to Carl's Jr. or any of the other commercial lots on this end of town. With that in mind, there was not a formal traffic study or analysis performed. But staff did a bit of an analysis, and based on the IT trip generation manual, we believe that other uses that would be uses by right are likely to generate additional average daily trips beyond what a 20 space parking lot would. But again, that's not based on traffic engineer's analysis. That's just based on me using the IT trip generation manual to look up what the typical use of a coffee shop or a fast food restaurant or a gas station would be. With that in mind, like I said, that's the one thing that we didn't get is a full traffic impact analysis, but even so, we believe criteria 1 is met. Criteria 2 is about the comprehensive plan. Staff believes that this is met. The land use element of the plan identifies this as regional commercial. This is a sort of use that could provide, it kind of provides a service for these other regional commercial draws of the area, like the New Argo cable car, like the mountain park, like some of the other businesses that maybe could use some extra parking. The third one is the impact on adjacent properties. Staff, based on referral comments, my review, I don't really see that the impacts of this use would be any higher than if a use by right was permitted. Any other use by right would have parking associated with it. This will have basically just be parking. So any additional use beyond that you have for a coffee shop or something like that is unlikely to gratefully expanded because it's parking lot instead, in our opinion as staff. I recommended, we're working with Nick from the attorney's office, we recommended, or we're brainstorming a couple of potential conditions that might be put in place. These aren't necessarily recommended, but they may be worth discussing. The first would be that parking spaces meet all of our minimum parking dimensional standards delineated on site to our satisfaction. The plan shows that they are met. We would have to confirm that. Condition concerning compliance with the city's parking plan, a condition concerning potentially operating hours if there's concern about impacts at certain hours of the night, and then perhaps a condition concerning security measures and the like. So in general, our staff supports the application and is happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we want to ask you some questions first or let the?
However you prefer to proceed.
I guess if he's got something to say right now and then in case there's more questions from his talk. I can't see him, so.
Sure. Ken, do you have anything you'd like to add, I suppose, as part of this?
And can you please state your name and address for the record before you
Can you hear me?
can?
Yep.
Okay. Ken Nelson Jr. and my address is 13417 Highway 144, lot number 1 in Fort Morgan, Colorado, 80701.
Thank you.
And I don't really have anything else to add other than what Dylan had to say. The parking lots are currently, I did have them, a few upgrades done on them. They were sealed. They are paved. They were sealed and striped by a professional striping company. And there is they're 9 foot wide minimum, not the 8.5 that's required. I wanted a little bit more space between them. And the length of them are minimum 18 feet. Most of them are at an angle, which required a longer parking spot. So we're well within that. And then the space, the drive between them is I believe over, I know the minimum is 23 feet for an in and out for, one way in, one way out. I think it's minimum that, if not more.
It says 24, but okay.
And I wanted to add one more note, and Nick might have some legal, something to add. The original request was for a conditional use permit that would be for 10 years, but the way that our conditional use permit code is written is that would be sort of not. Nick you might be able to get more detail from Nick, but essentially, like you see later on the agenda for work session, we don't really have a good mechanism under our current code to approve a use for only a certain period of time. In the past, we've had a couple of examples where we did approve it for a very specific time period, and that was seen sort of as a trial basis because it's never really been done before. But the recommendation that would be from me, I guess, would be that it would be just a kind of a conditional use permit that runs with the land.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. The code just creates an ability for the council to revoke a conditional use permit, subject to certain processes being followed, but the way Dylan describes it makes sense.
Right, so if we're concerned about, maybe there's issues with it that would make it so that the city doesn't want to prove in perpetuity, maybe the better way forward would be to put in conditions that might be able to cover that so that we could then revoke if those conditions aren't met.
okay, so my thinking right now is that the ordinance should have been changed first. So we can put a time frame in, because I guess I wasn't comfortable with the 10 years, and I'm not comfortable with until the land changes ownership. I thought originally we were looking at maybe 5 years. But now you're saying not to put that in there? Nick?
Well, there's not really a code basis to create these limits. I mean, once the conditional use is approved, it's in that conditional use ordinance, and then it can only be rolled back if the council decides to revoke the conditional use, or if there's a rezoning of the property, perhaps if the conditional use is in effect, or if the applicant decides to amend their application at any point or want to change the conditional use. But the way the code's written now, which is what the applicant is entitled to be reviewed under, there's no real time frame constraints, I guess you could call it.
Can the applicant put in their request that it's for 5 years? And then it can be revisited if the applicant decides not to do anything different with the property, or at that time, I mean, the intent down there isn't to have it all turn into parking. I would hope that eventually it's gonna become something else, but I understand what the applicant's trying to do right now and agree with that part of it. But I think after 5 years, it's something definitely you would hope that they're revisiting. Does that make sense to you, Ken?
It does. There's the current lease with the towing company that's there is a 5-year plus a 2-year option. So it's gonna be more than 5 years probably at that point.
Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time with that going past 5 years.
I have a question, Nick. If the maintenance went down and it was not being maintained, is that reason to revoke that conditional use?
I think so, because assumedly it would be uh, like a violation of the code, right? If the property went into a state of disrepair.
Yeah, I think as far as putting the city on the spot, having to figure out how to revoke it, to me is so up in the air. I mean, that's not fair to the applicant, of course, unless there's huge violations, that's different. But I don't think that's the intent either. Let me ask a couple other questions. I guess one of the conditions I had thought of too was adding the no overnight or storage. Even though it does state it in there, but to put that as one of the conditions. And then as far as the overnight, I guess that would depend on the business hours, which is one of the conditions. They have to give you the business hours.
Well, that was a thought that we had, was perhaps one of the conditions could be setting those business hours. For example, the city's parking lots. Some of them at least have like a no parking from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. sort of thing.
Right, which I would think the applicant, if that's one of the conditions, would do also, just to keep it consistent so people do use the parking and pretty much have the same rules as the city parking. So I would think that, I would like to see that as one of the conditions, the overnight and the storage. And then for something like this, does the applicant do a business license? Yes. Yep. Yeah. Good. Somebody else have more questions?
The city does not make any money on the parking. Is that correct?
Right.
And is there an overseer on the property in case there's an accident or somebody parks overnight, or is there somebody there?
That, I would guess, is a question for Mr. Nelson, the applicant. The city would, I mean, other than PD and their ability to enforce like nuisance and those sorts of things, we wouldn't, unless there was an agreement between the city and the private property owner to have it be managed by the city, then any sort of like overnight parking or towing or things like that would be the onus of the private property owner.
So if there's an accident, they would call PD, which that makes sense. But if there's overnight parking, wouldn't PD, I'm just thinking maybe they notify the city and the city contacts the property owner so he knows that's happening. I don't, well, and signage, no overnight parking. Yeah, I guess it's not any different than some other places though.
I assume there's gonna be some kind of kiosk or something for the patrons to pay. What if that goes down?
They get free parking.
Yeah.
Ken, is that kind of your intent, having kiosk parking?
Yes, I'm currently in discussions with Interstate Parking Company of Colorado LLC, and I have an agreement. However, or we're negotiating an agreement, but I wanted to make sure that it was going to be approved before we went any further.
Right, okay. So it sounds like it's kind of like that other parking lot then, that's using them also, right?
Right, but that wouldn't be a requirement, I guess, of the conditional use permit,
No,
unless
no,
that
it's
was.
not a requirement, it
Yes,
just,
just a
some
concern.
sense of
Right.
management, which to me sounds better too, yeah. Chuck?
I'm
Ken, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, no.
Oh, I meant the other Kent, sorry, Kent. Okay, so I guess we're back to the 5-year. Don't we have other conditional use permits in town that do have limits on them? Is there- no?
Correct me, Nick, if I'm wrong, but I believe the only conditional use permits that we've approved, with the time period was the AVA rafting conditional use permits from 2 years ago and the year before that. And I don't know really the legal basis why we would not want to, other than that being like we're unsure that this would work and we might not want this to ever happen again. I don't really know the difference there versus here.
I think the difference there was the applicant themselves submitted the CUP with that understanding that it would be for that year. So it was a, let's call it a self-imposed condition rather than a condition that the city is requiring of the applicant.
I also remember at the time, there was some amount of concern that it wouldn't be allowed. So the time limit was kind of like a concession, I guess.
And I think the other thing, I guess there's two other things now that I'm thinking about it. One is the seasonal nature of that use, like there's only people on site from like June 1st until September 1st at maximum. The rest of the year, and so we only approved it for that season essentially. And the other thing was that I think there was a lot of concern about some of the infrastructure, like wastewater and water on site, and the need for permanent infrastructure versus kind of port bodies. And so I think we said, well, we'll let it function this way for 1 year, kind of like how a temporary use permit is designed. But in the future, if we approve this, you have to have all that permanent infrastructure. Whereas in this case, the infrastructure is there. So what would be the change in the operation or the land use that would no longer make it no longer meet the standards, I guess?
I guess that's one thing you could add to it under the conditional is that a traffic analysis would have to be done, say, within 5 years. It would, to me, the thing that would kind of make it less complicated is then it sounds like if the applicant would put in, they voluntarily say a conditional use for 5 years with it being revisited, just like the other one. But-
Nick, would we be able to put a condition in place saying like after a set period of time, the application would be revisited? Like kind of already put in place some sort of revocation hearing?
That's kind of saying what he doesn't want to do, where if the applicant voluntarily puts it in, then it is revisited with the possibility of it going away. And like I said, maybe it's at that point that the city is got more parking for one thing, or it's not the intent of
Right.
that area as far as development. You know, maybe in 5 years, Ken wants to build a hotel there or a boutique style hotel, which is, I think, progression that I think everybody would be in favor of. But without him having a deadline, he might not try as hard. Does that make sense? Ken, are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay.
Cindy, I've got a question. Is the timing discussion kind of just the idea that it's a conditional use, we're okay with it for now, but we might not be okay with it absolutely forever? Is that why we're discussing the timeline?
Yes, that's my thought.
Gotcha.
And right now, if we were to do this, it would mean forever unless the property would be sold, is my understanding. Unless the ordinance gets done first. And if the ordinance gets done first, then we can put timeframes in the ordinance where it would apply to this. But I also understand that Ken wants to get this thing going, which I think is a great use for it right now. Is everyone agreeing, disagreeing, or totally agree? Okay, so we're gonna be at an impasse here at some point.
I have another maybe silly question. What about snow removal? Is that something that has to be done by a certain time in the morning or just as needed, or is that kind of left to the owner to say, well, if I want business, I have to remove the snow?
Right, I mean, the way that I see this conditional
That's
use
what I would think.
would be, we're not necessarily reviewing their operations plans.
Right.
We're reviewing whether the use of the lot as parking, like a commercial parking company, I guess, if you will, is appropriate for the site. We as a city would not get involved in snow plowing unless they were operationally, during operations, plowing into the street or something like that and causing issues.
Right.
That's a good point, Dylan. Often in these conditional use discussions, we end up discussing the internal business practices of whatever theoretical business, and it's not really appropriate or necessary. I think we just assume that they'll operate legally, but in general, is this use permitted?
Right, yeah, and I think the key question is, given the guardrails in the code or limitation code, if this use were to be in place as this use for 100 years, does it meet the three criteria for approval? Knowing that we may have
It's
different
not.
priorities for the city now.
Okay, so I mean, I have a hard time approving this without a time frame put on it. And everyone can disagree or agree. It sounds like everybody kind of wants that. So the options are the applicant can put that in there. Or we can hold off and wait till we have an ordinance in place, but that doesn't help the applicant.
Cindy, do we know the timeline that the ordinance would be? We could just put that timeline on this.
My guess is they have to write it, they have to post it, they would have to come to us, they would have to go to the city. I would think you're 6 weeks out easily, right?
And I really must say that the denial to wait for the ordinance is really not a proper basis for denial. The applicant is entitled to a review under the code that was existing at the time of application. So I really would not recommend denying on that basis.
Well, I'm having a hard time with this because that's not how we handled the one with ABA, so it's like we have a different set of rules right now with this one compared to that one. Ken, do you want to put the 5 years in?
Not necessarily, no, because I have leases that are longer than that.
Leases, you mean for the towing company?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you said 5 years plus a 2-year option, right?
That's correct.
Cindy, I guess, we're talking about this ordinance, you know, that's future law, current law doesn't really talk about that, I guess, or that's my question, so I mean, we can't, as Nick was saying, make our decision based on some theoretical future thing.
Where does it say that in our current, that you can't put a time frame on it, Nick?
Well,
Doesn't say you can't.
it doesn't say you can't, but the code does not contemplate putting a timeline in. The code just contemplates the review against the 3 criteria that Dylan identified in his staff report.
But in the past, we have put timeframes on stuff.
Yes, in that one specific scenario, and again, that was where Kent used the right word. It was a concession from the applicant, and concessions are fine, but for us to impose a condition, it has to have some, rational basis with what the code provides for.
What if we made it 7 years?
Yeah, ask them.
I mean, I suppose
Yeah.
it would be,
It's better than 10.
What if you made it 7 years so that the applicant's contracts are covered, the ones you already have?
The only thing I mean, to me, you can get out of the contract at some point, but I would compromise on the 7, but.
well, and I suppose my question, not to push anything one way or the other, would be, how does the compliance with the 3 criteria change if there's a 5 or 7 year approval period after which they need to come back versus it being approved with the property, but if they don't operate properly, then it gets revoked? So what's the change in the criteria?
There's not a change in that. I guess the part that makes it difficult is it being brought up that you can't put a time frame on it, where we've never known that before or handled anything that way before. So getting that thrown at you at this point and not, I would like to read it and decipher it if that's exactly how it's interpreted and says it. I just think committing to forever is not in the best interest of the city.
The code says that the approval of a conditional use requires the imposition of conditions or requirements designed to eliminate, reduce, or mitigate adverse impacts resulting from the proposed use. And I think that's where the trouble is, right? I don't see how the proposed timeline is eliminating, reducing, or mitigating adverse impacts resulting from the proposed use.
Okay, so one of the adverse impacts could be a traffic analysis. So we should add that to one of the conditions then, that a traffic analysis needs to be done on Colorado Boulevard and Minor Street within 5 years.
And I
Because
think that is an appropriate condition, yeah.
that there, I mean, let's just say traffic explodes. I mean, gosh, help us if it does. I mean, it's not there again, the intent, but it could to be where something had to be done, especially if you look at the Minor Street entrance in and out of there.
That is a different application.
Right, but it's gonna be the same conversation. I know, it's,
Hey, Nick's okay with it.
yeah.
It's fine.
I understand that it's the 2 different parking lots, but that would be a condition I would put on both of them. Because yes, the area down there could change. I mean, there could be a building taken out and the road redeveloped. So I think doing a traffic study within 5 years would be a requirement. Chuck?
I agree that we need to address 28, 30, 15. Or,
Okay, and that's the other, that's the
yeah, that's
next,
the other.
yeah, okay.
This one I think is fine with Doesn't matter if it's 7 years or 10 years.
Okay. So I say put the condition in. If you're gonna get me to compromise on the traffic study in 5 years. If anything, that gives the city some leverage at that point if the conditional use permit isn't working. Right? Which is something that could make it go away. And I'm not saying anybody's trying to make it go away, but if there's an issue, we're stuck with that issue forever. Until the property owner tries to do something with the property.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So in 5 years, there's still not going to be any new building on there and no more drawing off of the interstate. This is essentially parking for what is already an impact on the current parking situation at the East End. And in 5 years, you were mentioning that, you know, there should be a hotel there. That would bring a heck of a lot more traffic. That would constitute a traffic study. I totally agree. But just having parking lots there to accommodate what's already being pulled off the interstate, I just don't understand the reason why we would have to have a traffic study in 5 years or even now, because there's nothing new there, if that makes sense.
Right.
That
But
makes
in
a lot of
5
sense. Thank you, Ken. I tend to agree with what he just said.
Yeah, but in 5 years, there could be something there. Who knows?
Or an asteroid could hit, Cindy.
Well, what's it called? McDonald's could get plowed down and they could build something there. I mean, I'm just saying, and we don't know what the volume coming into town is going to be in 5 years. So it's hard to say. I mean, they're reconstructing I-70. That could hit us with everybody coming to Idaho Springs.
My guess would be that that wouldn't have an impact on this particular use if uses on other properties change.
I
Like,
think
we
it
can't
would-
hold. Like if.
It would
all
have
that
an impact on
happens-
Colorado Boulevard.
But if Carl's, like Carl's Jr. has a traffic impact study that was done as part of that, for example. And like if all of those changes do happen, like more people are probably going to come to Carl's Jr., but we can't like, they don't have to then update their traffic study.
But they did get one to be able to build it there.
And they are a use by right as opposed to a conditional use, even though the research I did says that a fast food drive-through would generate more traffic than a parking lot, but yeah, I'm not a traffic engineer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that would. And with the limited amount of spots, I'm just looking at the forever. Any questions?
No, ready to vote, probably.
Okay, does somebody want to make
Oh, and when you make a motion, any conditions should be included
oh, right,
in the motion.
so the overnight storage and 5-year traffic analysis, if somebody thinks that or not. I can't make the motion. Well, I guess I can I? And I don't have the motion in front of me, so. Chuck?
I don't know what to say. You got it written in here somewhere?
Well, here's the potential conditions. So it's to recommend for approval to council or not recommend, but add those conditions.
I can also make the motion and someone can say so moved if the motion is desired by how I say it. I think there's consensus around the condition of no overnight parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and consensus around no overnight storage. I'm just not so sure about this traffic analysis piece.
I would drop the traffic analysis piece. If it
And then they
Up
get
to
to have
me.
it forever.
doesn't matter, we won't be here.
Oh, my God. That was bad. You're right. Oh, even Dylan's laughing. Oh, that was bad. Okay, go for it, Dick.
Well, then I think the motion would be a motion to recommend approval of CUP 26-002, a conditional use permit for a parking lot use at 2833 and 2821 Colorado Boulevard with the following conditions: no overnight parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and no overnight storage on the property.
So moved.
Somebody said, okay, thank you, Kent. A
So
second,
moved, I'll second it.
roll call.
Quick before we.
Howard, Chuck Howard,
Yes.
Kent Slaymaker,
Yes.
Judy Murphy,
Yes.
Chair Cindy Olson.
I'm gonna have to say no. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, now we'll go on to the second item.
I will keep my analysis somewhat brief because I've done a similar analysis recently. So this is conditional use permit 26-003, a conditional use permit to allow for a parking lot, commercial parking lot use at 2815 Minor Street. Zoned C2, this they've estimated that approximately 15 spaces being city requirements could be constructed here. The subject property on the west side of the property does have a small apartment complex at the moment, but this commercial use would be a change of use to the eastern half, which is why a conditional use permit is necessary. The analysis for this would be, so access to the property is on 2815 Minor Street. It is on Minor Street. So if someone is entering onto this property, access would be, you'd have to use the turning lane on Colorado Boulevard to, well, if you're coming westbound, you'd use the turning lane and turn onto Minor Street and then turn into parking lot. Or if you're coming eastbound, you turn on Minor Street or you drive through the Minor Street. Kind of like from west to east. So those would be how you'd access it as opposed to previous application, which is on Colorado Boulevard. Based on our review, the dimensional requirements for the plan are met, drive lane requirements are met. With 15 parking spaces, the ITE trip generation manual would suggest that the use is likely less traffic than for some more intensity by right uses like a coffee shop or a fast casual restaurant or a gas station. However, because we didn't have an engineered traffic study, that's just we need the manual. Any uses on site would have to be managed and operated and enforced by the private property owner. It's city's thing, and staff believe in general, this isn't likely to generate traffic beyond what another use of the property would be, even without the traffic analysis. And it otherwise meets our standards for the code, for the parking lot. With respect to the conditional comprehensive plan, regional commercial again, this is serving that regional commercial draw that the East End is starting to generate with the cable car and mountain park. And with respect to adjacent properties, the potential impact not likely to be larger than if it were another use like a coffee shop or something like that, that is by right use. Primary impact would be traffic in the vicinity of the area, which would be generated with other uses. And I suppose if there's not hours of operation limits, then we're coming and going to the night. The big difference I'd say at this site versus the previous site we talked about is just that there is residential closer to this proposed use. We didn't receive any comments that had issues with the proposed use from fire authority or engineering or public works or police departments. They all got the referral and none of them took issue with any of the aspects of the proposal. With that in mind, again, we have the same potential conditions about security measures, operating hours, parking plan, compliance, and another one that might be interesting on this site, since there is residential next door, is maybe some sort of screening. That's not included in my report, but that could be a way to mitigate potential impact on neighbors. With that in mind, staff generally supports the application, and so would recommend approval at this time of the conditional use and take any questions.
Okay, I thought of something when you were talking. If somebody wanted to put, if they wanted to put a building in the parking lot and sell coffee or something, that's not within what they'd be able to do with this conditional use permit, right? They would
Well,
have to come back.
A coffee, if you, to establish that is a by right use. So it wouldn't need a conditional use permit. If you're proposing something that as a primary use is just allowed in the zone district, you'd have to go through, you might need a final development plan if the conditions are met for that, but otherwise it's likely just building permits and zoning review, which would be administrative. And so because parking is known as accessory use, that's why they have to come here for a conditional use permit, which means it potentially could be easier to build or it'd be a different process, I guess, to build like Carl's Jr. is a good example. They had to get a final development plan because it's a new building requiring a building permit in the C2 zone district. So they got a final development plan because it's a new building. It went through the whole public hearing process. In this case, there's no buildings, no building permits are required. So if approved, they wouldn't have to come back for anything else beyond administrative, like approving them.
But it changes the conditional use permit.
Can I? So if a conditional use for this parking lot is granted, it doesn't mean it has to be a parking lot.
Well,
You could come and change it to anything that is already allowed per the code at any time, and just not, that conditional use still stays.
That's a great point.
Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So like for any commercial lot, like Carl's Jr., they don't have to stay Carl's Jr. They could turn into any other by right use. So they're not required to stay as a parking lot forever or even establish a parking lot. We're essentially saying this use is permitted on site now.
So at that point too, no traffic analysis has been done. So
Well,
that could be a bad impact all of a sudden if something was built and nothing and one hadn't been done.
well,
You're
you-
saying they can build and do it, but
but
you
we-
can't go back and tell them to do that.
Cindy, I have a question for you.
Huh?
I have a question for you. The applicant is here asking about a parking lot, and you're asking about what if in 3 years they want to put a coffee shop there? Is that your question that you're asking?
we would.
It's an
require-
interesting question.
Well, it's, do they have to come back to us is
They would need to.
is what I'm wondering do they have to come back?
A brand new structure in the C2 zone district would require a final development plan. And as part of the final development plan, we can require the traffic analysis.
So they would have to come back is the answer to it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that doesn't matter on either property then. No, I wish we would have stated that in the previous one. Okay. Any other questions? Do you want to try the motion again, Nick?
Sure, I would offer the applicant the chance to speak on this application if he so chooses. If he does not, then I can try the motion again for you guys.
I think everything's pretty much been covered. I mean, there's no other anticipated plans of putting any coffee shops or anything like that. And as far as like, I would also remind that there's a I don't know, like a food truck or something like that that's on Colorado Boulevard right there at the east end of the property that I own. That's actually on city property that is there as well. So, I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but I don't anticipate or having any any plans or anything like that of having anything but parking lots there for a long while.
Okay, go ahead, Nick.
Okay. Well, it sounds like then the motion would be a motion to recommend approval of CUP 26-003, a conditional use permit for a parking lot use at 2815 Minor Street with the following conditions: no overnight parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and no overnight storage on the property.
You forgot the other conditions. The 1 through 4.
You're losing me.
Do you
So
want?
moved.
It was
Well,
part
now
of
we've got a.
those conditions were in the last one, right?
Which ones?
The ones in front of us. The parking spots meet the requirements. The parking
Well,
plan.
no,
Operating.
the only conditions are the ones that have been included in the motions.
Did he
And
include? Yes. He didn't? I'm glad I said no.
I will say, if you're looking at these potential conditions, the this minimum parking dimensional standards, I don't think that's really important because those code sections are already existing and you have to comply with our code anyways. And I think the city's parking plan one is also maybe a bit redundant. Operating hours, obviously, we've got, and then security measures, the motion does not touch on. I will say also, though, that Kent did say so moved on this motion. So at that point, the determination is whether there's a second or not.
Okay, can you repeat the motion? Which conditions? So we can get a second on it.
Yeah, the condition or the motion was to recommend approval of the application with conditions saying no overnight parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and no overnight storage at the property.
And operating hours.
Right, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. would be no parking. So basically operating hours would be covered by that because the rest of the time you could have
Can
parking.
you say operating hours? Okay, do we have a second? I'll second. Okay, so it's got the 3 conditions.
Well, condition number 1 is there's no overnight parking between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And there's no overnight storage permitted on site. And the operating hours is covered, I guess, under condition 1 by saying outside of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. you'd be allowed to operate.
Okay, roll call.
Chuck Howard,
Yes.
Kent Slaymaker,
Yes.
Judy Murphy,
Yes.
Chair Cindy Olson.
No. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Ken Nelson.
Thank you very much for your time.
It goes to council then next week.
It will go to council for first read would be the second meeting in June. I didn't want to put it on the meeting date because after deadline was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to write in any like, findings or anything from
And I
this.
couldn't deliver a packet.
And
So
I
anyway,
believe the hearing doesn't occur until second reading on that ordinance, so it'll be a little bit before they actually make a final decision on this.
and that will be likely the July 8th meeting because of how things hit. So whether it was first reading
Wow.
on Monday or
Somebody's off.
on the 23rd, we would have to do the first read, and second read, so.
Cause it's gotta be 10 days after I put it in the paper the first time before we can have second read.
Right.
So there are definitely strict timelines.
So that's next step, yes.
Okay, next agenda item, old business.
I don't have any old business tonight.
Okay, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting for June 4th at 7 p.m. Exactly.
Yes, no, no. You can be out of here by 7:01.
Thank you so much. It was a great meeting. It was very nice to see you all.
Good night, Wonder.
Bye, nice to see you.
Nice to see you virtually.
Good evening there. Nice to hear you. Okay. Bye, guys.
Yep, same.
Does anyone want a break before we roll into work
No.
session? Work session should be relatively quick tonight. As we were reviewing these applications today, Carmen had mentioned, saying, well, really, we ought to have a temporary use permit system. So that if there's potential impacts or unique characteristics, that may, well, basically, some people are like, here, a good example of it is actually like, let's say there's a rafting company and they're like, we're gonna just operate seasonally. We want an approval to operate for 180 days. Like, we don't really have a way of doing that right now. I mean, Carmen had kind of said, like, we shouldn't be doing conditional use permits the way we had in the past. Like we went over tonight. So her recommendation was, let's fix that, and then we can create basically 3 conditions. One would be just a conditional use permit that runs with the land, it's forever. You say you're allowed to do a rafting headquarters here. You can do that same rafting headquarters 50 years from now, as long as you're meeting all the conditions. Number 2 would be, it runs just with the property owner. And so we'd be able to say, like, we're okay with Mr. Smith operating the use, but if it changes hands for whatever reason, like, we don't think that use should remain, and the new owner would have to come back. And then the third one would be, we set a specific term, like 2 years or 180 days or 5 years. And so it basically gives Planning Commission and Council more options when reviewing these things. We don't need to change any of we'd slightly change the review criteria, but there's no like real substantive change, she thinks. We'd still be reviewing it against those criteria, but we'd have the latitude to say, like, we could revoke this in the next 3 years, but we're saying no matter what, it's revoked 3 years from then. And so that would be that's what this work session is about.
So you're saying if you put the years in there, that means automatically it's revoked in 3 years? Or they come back?
Well, that's how it would function. Yeah, you say you're approved for 5 years, you have to come back if you want another forever or 2 years or 8 years, whatever. Like, after 5 years, this is void.
Okay, so in the ordinance, you don't have to put how many years. It can be dependent on what the use might be. Like the example, a parking lot, you might want 5 years. On a conditional use for a rafting company, you might give them 20 years.
Right, or you might give them 90 days, like someone says.
Oh, right, because
I'm
of the
establishing
summer.
a use,
Yep,
and it's
gotcha.
like.
Yep.
And actually, that's a reasonable example
Okay.
in some ways, because Kramer, maybe not 90 years, but like Kramer North America wanted to do like some sort of storage use, but just for the summer, and we said, you can't do that on that property.
Mhm.
And so then They were like, well, we'll get the conditional use permit. We only need it for 180 days. But now we've got the storage use on the property forever. Like,
So absolutely, timeframes make sense to definitely put them in there because of exactly that, because then the property could be used.
right. It's the sort of
More
thing
often.
that allows you to tailor the approval to a specific use, I guess, as opposed to like a more generalized version of that use, you know, like you approve a storage use and it's only for when Kramer leases the property and then it ends with Kramer, then like the next guy can't come in and say, well, I have a storage use, so I'm gonna start storing boats.
Right.
So that would be benefit of it as well.
Makes sense, because it's not forever then.
Right, and there's some, like, you know,
Seems
a
like we're going
Jiggy's
in
Cafe
circles.
building, it's not operating as a rafting headquarters, but it got a conditional use permit to operate it as a raft headquarters. That runs with the land. So functionally, until their conditions aren't met, they can operate they could establish that use again. Just based on how it was approved previously. So this kind of just gives us more latitude to establish temporary use allowances.
I like it. I think, yeah, it sure sounds like something we should already have in place.
Yeah,
That's been missed for years and years and years and years.
I would say that there's more than one thing in the code that I've identified as that sort of thing, you know? So it's just a matter of making it happen now.
Yeah.
And then everyone going forward no longer, you know, now they get the new standards. I think it's similar with like noise, you know, like right now we don't establish really much with noise and we can't really change it, or exterior lighting or whatever, right? Like I can establish a 5,000 lumen light bulb at my front door and shine it right at my neighbor. And
Right.
and I could do that because that's, the code doesn't have it, so.
Well, you're almost done with the comp plan, so this will be great to start moving with those, because Nick seems to get the ordinance done quickly and back to us, so it's a process that could go pretty good on getting a lot of these updated in a
Absolutely.
positive way. Yeah.
I think we can have an ordinance for next meeting in July to look at.
How do you determine the length of time?
It would depend on the applicant or what the business is. That's the discussion part and
Yeah, that's
their
what I'm
plan and
asking.
everything.
Would that be determined by the planning commission at the time?
It would still be the council since they're the final decision maker. And I think in terms of the time, you know, this duration of the approval, we would want to have some sort of standard in there. It'll be something that I'll think about some more as I'm drafting the ordinance. But definitely what we don't want is make it up as you go along when we get applications.
Yeah, I feel like it's not the sort of thing you want to be like arbitrary about. Like there should be a reason to establish like the time frame we're establishing. Like we know that there's going to be a big change in 2029 when Floyd Hill opens, right? And so maybe the use.
Traffic's gonna be different.
And so like that I think would be potentially a reasonable thing. The other thing that talking to Guy just before this meeting, he said he has one concern with temporary use permits, and that it's like you give them 5 years and then they get another 5 years and then they get another 5 years and then it just becomes a permanent use, but we haven't established it as a permanent use. So he had a suggestion, I don't know what you think about this, Nick, of saying like, if approved, and I don't know how it would work for like a 180-day seasonal permit or something, but like if someone gets a temporary use permit and then they want to do the same use again, they should not be able to get another temporary use. It should just like at that point run with the land because we've clearly identified that that use is appropriate.
Mhm. That's
That
not a
sounds
bad.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
But-
yeah, I think this is good.
Or they wouldn't get it at all. If,
Right, like I mean, that's the thing though, like the Floyd Hill example is a reasonable one of saying like, you know, you establish a use that you don't think is gonna be a big deal now, and then once there's 20 million more cars, it becomes a huge issue. Like maybe you want to be able to
Mhm.
look at that again, and that's a reason to put
We
temporary.
may have to
use
do a
in.
traffic study.
Well, and wouldn't you like to get those cars off the streets as soon as possible when they come off of I-70?
Okay, I do like those.
Perfect. Are there any other suggestions, or should Nick and I just move forward with getting an ordinance ready?
I think get an ordinance ready.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Fantastic, all right. Guess that's that then. Anything else you want to hear, Nick?
No, I think that all sounds good. We'll cook up something in the meantime and see you guys in July.
Okay. All right, that's good.
All right.
Anybody have? We're in a work session now.
Have a
Okay,
good night then, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Night, Kent.
7:10. Kent, have a good night. I'll send you a message and see you tomorrow.